4-4, if you've got about 4 left, I'd like you to drop about 4 in that same run-in, a little bit closer to the chopper, or right across that big clump of trees. Understand what I mean?
I'll be coming in from the north in about 30 seconds.
Okay, have you got the clump of trees I was talking about?
My name is Cliff Groves. I always wanted to be a pilot since I was a kid. And I saw T-33s flying over my hometown of Greenville, Mississippi. And they had a base nearby that they flew out of. And they it just inspired me. I saw those and I'm going, I got to do that one day. And I got lucky and was able to get into the the background needed in high school to go to school in engineering and help prepare me for being a pilot. And I was able to get into the ROTC program, Air Force ROTC, at Mississippi State University, and I learned to fly at the airport nearby on a grass strip, and that inspired me more. And then I was able, after I graduated with a ROTC scholarship or an ROTC program there, I went to Columbus Air Force Base in the Air Force and undergraduate pilot training. So I was flying T-37s, T-38s in the UPT, and I was doing pretty well, better in flying than I was in academics, and I ended up graduating pretty high in my class, and we had fighters and other aircraft come down in the assignment list, and I was able to graduate high enough that I could pick an A-1. So I picked an A-1 out of my class list of aircraft. The F-4, it was in that list, was already taken, and the A-1 was a perfect airplane for me. I didn't know much about it, but I said I want to do that and go fly, and I knew I was going to combat, so that's how that started.
So you must have been pretty high in your class because I hear a lot of guys that, well, our buddy Roger said, no, I wasn't real high, and I wound up flying a C-123,
Right.
but
Right.
you had to be pretty high, probably top 2 or 3 in your class to get
Yeah.
picked.
I was number 5, and like I said, the F-4, and I think there was an A-7 that was in our list, and it was a brand new aircraft at that time. And so those were taken, and they had T-33 to go fly with ADC, and A-1, and it was that list, and I was able to get the A-1. It was great.
So when you went to A-1 training, did you go to Hurlburt, or where did you wind up with your A-1 training?
Yeah, A-1 training was at Hurlburt Air Force Base down in Florida, and that was a great assignment. I went to survival school en route, water survival school down at Homestead Air Force Base, and then up to the A-1 school. And I remember the first night that we arrived, driving toward the base, and I said, "Well, I got to go look at the airplane." And driving on the base at Hurlburt, and then they were doing some maintenance work in the A-1, and I heard this sound. It sounded like a big tractor, and it was a chook 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 engine, and that was the A-1, and that was a massive engine that aircraft had. So that also thrilled me a little more. So that's how I got started.
I've heard it described as the most hopped up Harley you've ever ridden.
It is. It's like that. Yeah, it's great. And I got that same feeling when we went to Sevierville and watched the 665 and the other guys fly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Years ago.
So and it never leaves you, that
No.
sound.
It doesn't leave you. Yeah, it's noticeable. It's distinct. It's no other airplane sounds like it to me.
So when you finished survival training and A-1 training, where did you go next?
I graduated, I think it was December that we wrapped up, early part of January. And so there was a few weeks off, and from Florida, my wife and I at the time, we said, get her settled in California. She wanted to be in California while I was overseas. So we started driving out toward California. My orders were to go over to Nakhon Phanom, and that was about February. Yeah, started in February. So I had a little bit of time off between the finishing class and starting flying over there. So
What year was that?
that was in 1971,
Okay.
February 71, and started flying over across the ocean and through Philippines. We went to en route to the Philippines. That was another 1 week class of snake school. They called it jungle survival school.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was your impression when you got to snake school?
They had a lot of snakes there.
Uh,
We saw the museum and snakes, but it was jungle. But I grew up in Mississippi, so I was familiar with jungle and bushes and the wildlife and stuff, but and gators. So over there they had snakes, and they had these little people called negritos, and they were local.
trackers?
Yeah, and they tracked you for escape and evasion training. So we were told go out and evade these guys, and if you do escape them over a period of time, like 24 hours, I think it was, then you got a prize or whatever. Got to say you did it. But those guys, if they found you, then they would get a bag of rice. So it was a big deal for them to, and we almost all got caught. I got caught pretty quick, maybe.
I was wondering if you grew up in the
I did, but I couldn't hide like some of those guys could. And you're hiding, and you got ants crawling all over you, and just pretty bad. Yeah. So survival school, and that's when I first saw the I forget the name of it now. It was an extraction system where they send up a balloon, and you put this coat on, and you get this harness on, and a plane comes by, a C-130, and maybe it was 123s at the time, and they have a probe out in front, and they hook this balloon and grab the person, and we saw a live demo of that, grabbing that person and taking them up to extract them out of a jungle or whatever. This was a demo, but it was like, we're going to use this in case you get shot down in Vietnam. So,
Did you ever know of them using that in Vietnam?
no, I don't know of a case. I think there may have been one or two.
I read where they used it way up north, where somebody was in North Vietnam spying, and right on the Chinese border. I
Yeah,
heard where they
it
used it up there to get a guy out that
Right.
had been spying on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and all the
Right.
supplies coming down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, it worked. It was like high tech stuff, to
yeah,
do that.
they used that in the John Wayne movie, The Green Berets.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Okay.
you made it through snake school.
So we're at school, and
Yeah.
we graduated from that, and I think it was about a week long, and then I flew into Thailand, and flew to Bangkok, and then caught they call it the Klong, where we flew up the river, and stopped at different bases, and NKP was the base that I was going to. So I got off there, and there's my welcome to Nakhon Phanom, Thailand.
What was your first thought when they opened the door?
Red clay dirt and humid, more humid than Mississippi Delta, where I grew up, and hot, and the smell of open sewers. And it was, and I'm going, this is interesting.
Did you wonder at that point what you'd gotten yourself into?
No, I was looking past that, and I would have said, okay, get to my airplane, and we're going to be able to fly and combat, and that was just minor. I
So
remember that, though, yeah.
when you got to NKP, There were several units there at the time, and combat was heating up pretty heavy. They were losing pilots in that 70 to 72 time pretty heavily.
Right.
Which unit did you join?
We arrived in KP and was assigned to the 1st Special Ops Squadron. That was a squadron where they had consolidated 3 other squadrons into one the previous year. And so I think those units were from Pleiku and Benoit, and but I didn't know much about them, just that we were there in the 1st Special Ops Squadron, and it had the mission of hobo call sign, where we went out and did strikes or close air support missions in support of helicopter infills, exfills, and sometimes it'd be frag targets that we were going against, but usually it was support a helicopter operation. And the other mission was in the search and rescue with the Sandy call sign, and after you had a certain amount of experience flying the hobo missions, then you got into the Sandy missions.
Now, you were a Sandy 1 as well, correct?
Yes, we had Sandy. Sandy 1 was the call sign of the lead alert or on-scene search and rescue mission. And Sandy 2, 3, and 4 were the supporting aircraft.
Do you have any particular missions that stand out as a Sandy that you went in on?
Yeah, I had a couple. Gosh. Okay. I'll tell you the first one and I still remember like it was yesterday. The guy that I was flying with, his name was Al Roberts. He was an instructor, big guy, but very experienced and very calm and easygoing. And we're flying up to the first the hobo mission. I'll get to the Sandy in a minute. But this hobo mission I was on, and we're striking targets up in the northern Laos region, PDJ, they called it, the Plain of Jars. And that was where most of our missions were, up to the northern part of Laos. And it's about an hour away from the home base of NKP. And the interesting thing about the A-1 is we'd take off on the main fuel tank feed, and then once we got airborne and underway and not full of power vac, we'd switch to a fuel tank on the external. So we had a fuel tank on the right stub and a center line. Anyway, so we feed off that right tank, and it was good for about an hour's worth of fuel. And sure enough, we're striking about an hour away from the base, and we're in a couple of roll-ins and striking and pulling off. And I rolled in maybe the second or third pass, and I pulled off and my engine quit. And oh, crap. And it scared the hell out of me, because it's all of a sudden that big tractor engine, it's gone silent. And you're pulling away. Maybe somebody's shooting at you, or maybe not. And that scared the hell out of me. But Al says, no problem, just pull power back and switch your tank, which I should have done before the roll in. And you switch from external to internal fuel. And our engine colored and started pulling out. But that was pretty earth shattering for me at first. So, and that was how that went. The rest of the flight was normal.
Terrifying, I imagine, when that engine just stops. Wait, what?
It was, yeah. Okay. Anyway, so, and then another one in the same area. This is months later. I was flying one mission and pulling off into the clouds, and it was more of a threat. There was a gun down there somewhere, and we didn't know exactly where the gun was, but we're in and out of clouds, and I pull off one pass. Now I'm by myself at this one, and my my aircraft is slowing down rapidly because I'm pulling off, and nose high, and the attitude indicator says you're going this way, but my butt says you're going this way. And I kept pulling and pulling. I'm going, no, let's just go down. So I trusted my instruments and flew out of the cloud and made it. But it was on that pass that I got a hole in the back of my aircraft I think it was a 12.7 millimeter artillery shell. So that was a little scary, but I didn't know that had been hit. I didn't know I'd been hit until I got home and the crew chief says, "Hey, you got a hole in your plane."
Did he say he got a hole in your plane or you got a hole in my plane? Because the crew chiefs were a little possessive.
Yeah, he would. It wasn't one of those confrontations, but it was like, dang it. But it was like, okay, but it didn't operate any different. There's no
no real damage.
No damage.
As long as we're on crew chiefs, what I'd like to just delve into for a minute is, what were your thoughts on the guys that worked on the ground and kept your aircraft going, and the support teams? What was your thoughts on those guys?
They were outstanding. I mean, most of them were always getting a suntan, right? Because there's a lot of sun over there and hot, and they'd take their shirts off, the t-shirts off. So they're in their khaki pants and no shirt. And they're just working their ass off to turn the aircraft around, to put munitions back on. And I really had the utmost respect for them, because they aren't getting the glory of being a pilot in the air and this kind of stuff. But it was like they understood the mission, because they would say, "Okay, we got the aircraft ready for you to go," and it was all good. They were really top-notch professionals. And they were young. And, you didn't expect that, but they were very professional, considering what they were doing is supporting the military operation. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great.
So let's go back to your Sandy experience.
Okay. Sandy. Well, I've got one that stands out pretty well in memory. I was on we pulled alert, the TDY, for 6 days at an off-site place. Like we main base at Nakhon Phanom in Thailand, and we would go over to Da Nang, Vietnam, and pull alert there. We'd go down to Ubon.
The reason for that was you were so much closer to the trail, correct?
Closer to the action that could happen.
Okay.
Because you're pulling. It was a Sandy alert,
mm-hmm.
and you're there to be closer to the place where a guy gets shot down.
And the rescue forces.
Right, and the rescue. So you had Da Nang was one, and then Ubon, which was south of us, hour and a half or so by flight, and maybe less than that. And so we would be down there, and that was closer to the southern part of Laos, near the or central and southern part in Cambodia. So we were there pulling alert for 6 days at a time, and it was always two of us. We'd have two aircraft that would fly over one day, get out of the aircraft, cock it so that it's, they'd refuel it, and then you would cock the aircraft so that meant you prepared it with the pre-flight, and it's all ready to go, and your harness and everything is out there on the airplane, and if you got a call, you ran out and you were to get airborne within 15 minutes. So it was a 15-minute alert, they called it. So
do you remember what day the mission was by any chance?
This one was December the 31st of 71, and Bob Carlson was with me. He was my wingman, and we're on, we had days. Some days you'd just sit there and you wouldn't get a call, and then they may get a opportunity to go strike or something like that. But that's usually you just sit around waiting for the call in case somebody got shot down or an emergency mission. And it was about noon, and we had lunch, and we were laying around the hooch there, and it was approximately 1 o'clock, I think. And we got the call. We're trying to take a nap, actually. And they called us, and we said, all right, run out. We again got to the aircraft, cranked them up, taxied out, and took off for a mission that was a helicopter had been shot down up near Khe Sanh, northern part of Vietnam. And that's near the border with Laos, too, up there, and not too far from the DMZ. And it was about an hour and a half, a little over an hour, I guess, getting up there. So we got on radio, and they told us what the situation was. A helicopter had been shot down, and...
Okay, did you talk to Charlie Horse?
Sure did.
Okay, what did he say about the ground fire?
Okay, stand by again. I told him the jellies took a lot of it from his northwest, and we were going to lay some hate in and try again. Now, let me get a position from him.
Roger. It looks like that clump of trees probably to his northwest.
77. Charlie Horse 26, 88.
Go ahead, Charlie, 77.
Roger. When the jelly was in the hover, could you give us the position on the ground fire?
And they were coming from the north and from the west. They were coming all around us. And,
Roger.
King 2-1, King 2-1, smoke 4-4.
The crew members think we
San Diego, 77.
4-4, go ahead.
78 on uniform. He can't give us a position on the ground fire.
Okay, we'll be laying it around
King 2-1, go ahead.
He says they were making so much noise down there that he couldn't give us anything.
A helicopter had been shot down, and the pilot and crew were okay, and they sent another helicopter. This is Army helicopter. The second one got in and picked them up, and as they were exiting, they got shot down. So then I had two crews of helicopter guys on board.
How many people are on this cruise? 7?
I think it's about 7, yeah. And the maybe less than that.
So now you got 12 to 14 guys on the ground.
Yeah, well, that would have been right. So let me back up. The ones that we worked, once the second one got shot down, and the one we were going to pick up and rescue, there was a total of 7.
Okay.
So 7. So however they mixed them together. And it turns out one of the guys had been shot while we're trying to pick them up right after they had crash landed. And so now there's 6 survival guys on there. And we just went into, we got the briefing from the overhead FAC that was on scene, and he was telling us what happened and said, this is where they are, and we located them. And Bob and I went and we took, kind of canvassed the area.
Roger, copy, and I'm in hot now from the northwest on that front
5 and 12.
Roger that, 77.
Charlie Horse, 98. 24, traffic 285 just made a pass in there. Can you give us any?
Okay, I'll put it a little closer than those trees. Let me come around with a Lao 3, and I'll put it on those trees there. Roger that, Lao 3.
The weather was kind of crappy. We were at 1,500 feet, broken clouds, meaning 1,500 feet above sea level, or above elevation there. And it was rolling hills, so you'd have to weave your way in and out of the clouds sometimes, but stay below them most of the time. And so you're also closer to the ground by doing that. So we located them, and we trolled the area, meaning we'd just kind of go along and lazily going back and forth and see if they shoot at us. And once you realize that they're not too much activity shooting anymore, then you brief the helicopters that have also alerted and been they've joined you in the air too. So we had 2 air rescue helicopters, Jolly Green Giants. They were CH-53s, and they were also based at Da Nang. So we would we escorted them and got up, and we told them to hold a certain distance away, and we found where the helicopters, the survivors were, and then once we got everything worked out, then we'd bring in the helicopters. So the first helicopter came in. We found out roughly where the bad guys were, and they were mostly to the west and southwest and north of the downed copter, and it was in tall jungle grass, and so they couldn't, if they're a few yards away, they couldn't see each other, but they could shoot, and if they knew where somebody was. So there was quite a large number of enemy around that area, and we decided the best way we could bring the helicopters in was to lay a smoke screen down. And so I directed our guys, Bob and I, and we had, by that time, another couple of A-1s had joined us from NKP, and so we laid smoke down on the left, on the west side of the guys, and a northwest, southeast direction. And we're bringing in the helicopters from the west, northwest, and they would come and make a right turn, and there the rescue guys would be the down
Survivors.
And so the wind was pretty light, but we dropped the smoke over here, and then as the wind was blowing from the west, and it was almost on top of them by the time the helicopter was making the turn. So that turned out pretty good, because the smoke could keep the guys from seeing. First guy got into a hover, and he got shot up. There was a lot of fire, and I think his rotor, on the main rotor area, it got hit, and he was having some engine problems, so he pulled off and said, "I can't hover anymore," and he had to exit and head back home. And we went and pounded the area again with the ordnance we had, and we tried to suppress the folks around them as much as we could, and then bring in the second one. So we brought the second one in, did the same thing. We laid smoke down, brought him in, and they was able to make the rescue. And it was about a 5 or 6 minute, but it seemed a lot longer than that, well, at least in the hover, trying to get these guys up. But
from your position, could you actually see the North Vietnamese troops in the open, or did you ever see them in the open, or were they always concealed when you were fighting?
I didn't see them in the open. We had ideas where they were from the muzzle flashes that sometimes you'd see, but a lot of times you didn't. And so I wasn't able to really see them.
Okay.
See the enemies.
I was curious. Some people say, when they get into things with the special forces teams, they could actually see the NVA massing trying to come in on them. So I was wondering how.
No, I wish I'd been able to see that better, because it probably give us a better idea how to adjust our tactics or whatever. But couldn't see them, but we knew roughly where they were based on where they're shooting, where the guys on the ground were telling us they're shooting from. Right. So they got those guys up, and this all took about 2.5, 3 hours, I guess, something like that. And by that time we started heading home, and I remember hearing a call out of a SAM alert, which was near the DMZ, but we don't think it was aimed at us. We didn't have any issues with them, but you'd hear these calls over the guard radio frequency. And
for those people out here listening that don't know what a SAM alert is, can you explain what that meant to you in the cockpit?
Okay, good question. The surface-to-air missiles, and they had a variety of missiles, and I think most of them then were like the SA-2s or 2s or 3s. I forget, but to us it meant that we would be vulnerable to an attack from the ground, and if they could see us, they shoot the missile at us, and we, if you didn't see it coming at you in flight, then you would get hit. So that was always a pucker factor, when they called out one of those alerts.
And somebody said they were like the size of a telephone pole.
Yeah,
giant missiles.
I heard that from some of the F4 guys and 105 guys that flew over the north and saw them a lot more. They said, yeah, about the size of a telephone pole. But for us, we're low flying, and we didn't think they were after us particularly, because they usually go after the higher, faster flying aircraft.
Something with a greater heat signature.
Right. Until they got the smaller ones, which later in the year after I left, they introduced the SA-7, and they started actually targeting and hitting some of our aircraft. I think we lost 5 A-1s in the year after I left there due to the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I believe the rescue you were just talking about, that was Charley Horse.
Yeah, it was. It was Charley Horse 26.
Charley Horse 26.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or Army, and they had these little scarves that I ended up getting one of their scarves after we got together after the flight, and they were happy as they could be, and we were happy and all that. So, yeah.
So from there, you would have the celebration that they had survived.
Yeah.
What was the next day like when you'd go back to work? It was just another day.
Yeah, next day, just another day. Alert, cock your aircraft, sit around,
wait for the call.
Waiting for the call. But wait, I got something else to add.
All right.
On that mission. Now obviously we get intel reports that tell you where you expect troops to be and where they're massing or whatever. But the only thing we knew from the intel ahead of time for that is there was a whole bunch of them had crossed the DMZ, and they were coming south or on the trail, and they were amassing somewhere around Khe Sanh. Well, Khe Sanh Airport was one that we had been at and left forces, and then they were headed that way, and all we knew from intel was there's a bunch of them, and so expect North Vietnamese regulars, not just Viet Cong. So we knew there were professional troops that were coming down there. I just found, and Roger Youngblood sent me this interesting article that was written by the North Vietnamese describing that mission that day of what they were doing. And it said this division of troops, whatever that size is, were going down, and their objective was to get to Khe Sanh and take it over again, and make sure that South Vietnamese forces and our forces weren't there. And this thing described what they were doing, and they described in this article from the North Vietnamese people, they're shooting down that first helicopter and then shooting down the second one. And so I knew it was the same exact one. It was on that date. They had the date 31 December. And it was like, this is what they were doing. And sure enough, it was like we expected, a big group heading that way. And we kind of foiled their stuff. And they also said that the smoke that we laid down when we were picking the guys up, or before picking them up, that really confused them, and they weren't able to see and operate. So we learned I just learned that was more effective than I thought it was. So that's pretty interesting.
It's amazing what you find out in time.
Yeah.
We keep running across this where, now that things have kind of normalized, there's communication.
Yeah.
And you're finding out a lot of things that happen on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Let's see. Now, you were in country for a year at
Yes.
NKP?
Yeah.
Anything else happened that was very notable to you?
Well, on the same Sandy Alert trip at Da Nang, this is maybe 2 days later. It was right, 2 days later. We got a call, so it was around the 2nd or 3rd of January, and of 72. And when we got an alert that there was Army helicopters had inserted a team of reconnaissance team on the ground up in the highlands in the western part of Vietnam, and they had gotten into trouble and they were trying to get out. Well, the Army helicopters had gone in and picked up some of them, but there was one guy that was still down there, and the Vietnamese, Viet Cong, and all were around him, and he was so desperate. He said, "Drop a bomb right on top of me," and he'd kind of buried himself into the ground, into the bushes, and he knew that if they caught him, they'd skin him alive or torture him, make it really bad for him. And so that's why I said I'd just rather go out with a bomb on top of me. And we did that. Bob Carlson was still with me on that mission. We coordinated with the FAC, who was in charge, and it was one of the Army helicopter guys. And we found out exactly where he was, and I ended up dropping a white phosphorus bomb right on top of him. Now, the white phosphorus bombs were used for marking targets because they'd smoke, or if you dropped them armed, they would, it was pretty good explosion, and that white phosphorus kind of goes through, it burns through anything that it hits. So, we dropped it. I think, did we drop it? Yeah, it was armed. Yeah, we dropped it armed, and it exploded. And we heard from the guy before that, and then right after that, we didn't hear anything. And the Army guys who were in the FAC aircraft said, "Well, we think he's maybe gone, but we've got everything under control as best we can." And we started heading back to base, and we did that. I got a hole in my aircraft and my centerline fuel tank on that same mission, but that's another story. So we got home, and it was like 2 days later, one day later, we heard that the guy had survived, and the enemy that was on top of him, well, they got burned up pretty bad, and he was able to get rescued. And we got back to NKP a few days later and had the biggest celebration you can imagine. Because of life. Yeah, anyway, so.
You brought up something that I've only heard one other pilot talking about, and it was that the VC would literally skin you alive.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
And I've heard that was a real fate that you faced if you went down.
Yeah.
Did that ever get in the back of your head at all, or you just put that somewhere else and just do your job?
I just put it behind. We knew that it'd be that or torture or whatever, taken back to Hanoi Hilton or whatever if we got captured. But
any of your friends get shot down and captured?
I had several guys that got shot down that I knew, and I don't believe there was any captured. There was one guy who was MIA for many years, and it was right after I'd gotten there to the squadron, and he was listed as MIA for a while. But we.
Do you remember his name?
I'd probably have to look it up.
That's fine. That's fine. It's been a long time. A long time. So you actually affected the rescue of that guy by blowing the VC off of him, and
right.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was, that felt good, right? Because you were able to get the guy out of hell.
A fate worse than death, literally.
Yeah.
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 So now, were there any more missions that stood out that you'd like to chat about here? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. No. I mean, that same mission where I got the bullet in my centerline tank.
Yeah.
It was a 7.62 round, and I had the bullet for a while as a souvenir, but I ended up misplacing it somewhere. But it was again, you don't feel that on the aircraft. It's if it had kept going straight, the way we found it out later, if we got on the ground, is that the hole was such that if it had kept going, it would have gone right up my ass.
Oh,
right?
no.
It was like straight in the middle, and but it wasn't an incendiary round, so it didn't explode, and it got in the fuel tank. Okay, so as we did normally, we finish a mission and striking, and you look each other over, you and your wingman, and you go, okay, looks like your plane is hole free or whatever. He goes, hey, Clip, our call sign. Sandy 7 and Sandy 8 was our call sign. Sandy 7, you got fuel streaming out of your fuel tank. And I was wondering at that point, we'd only been airborne maybe 2 hours at the most. And he goes, okay, and we're checking fuel, and he's got more fuel than me. Well, that's very unusual because the wingman always had a little bit less fuel than the leader, because you're keeping up with the lead and you're using more fuel. So I've got less fuel than him, and as we got back to Da Nang, closer to Da Nang, now that's getting worse. I mean, the amount of fuel difference. So I certainly leaking fuel. And it didn't affect the performance of the aircraft. So we got home, got down, and I pulled into the de-arm area with the crew chiefs there, and they pulled me up, and and I saw the crew chief's eyes get this big when he said, "Oh, cut it off," because he got fuel leaking from the centerline tank. Anyway, that was another fun event on the same mission.
Oh my goodness. So at the end of your tour, how many missions do you believe you flew? Did you keep up with that?
Yeah, I had 110 missions in the A-1 combat missions, and total of about 350 hours or something like that. Most of our missions were averaging 3.5.
Wow.
4 hours sometimes.
So when you finished with the A1s, where did you go next?
Next assignment was in T-38 as an instructor. I went to Laughlin Air Force Base, which is in Del Rio, Texas. And that was like a 4-year assignment. From there, I went to, that was a fantastic job in T-38. Great aircraft and all that. And of course, that's getting about 60 years old now, most of those. And they're going to replace it. They're going to replace the T-38 with I think it's called a T-7.
Is that the turboprop that I'm seeing?
No, it's a jet.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I've not seen that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens with the budget and all that. So that the 38 was a fantastic plane to fly and instruct students in, and then that's a fore and aft seating arrangement, tandem seating. So you're the students in the front, instructor in the back. Very hard to see and to land. Some people couldn't do it, couldn't land the T-38 from the back seat. So that was part of the challenge there in the 38 instructor. From there, I went to AFIC, and that was an assignment that I didn't really want, but I wanted an aircraft, another aircraft like a fighter or whatever. And they said, no, we'll put you in O2s at Bergstrom, or you can go to school. And I go, okay, I'll do the school. Oh, I had a U2 assignment briefly at one point there. Anyway, that didn't work out. So I went to AFIT, which was Air Force Institute of Technology. That was a master's degree program in engineering. And that's where I went to, it was Dayton, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I was there for a year and a half, got my graduate degree in astronautical engineering. And then I went to fly desk for the next few years and work in the space business. So,
What did you do in the space business?
I was a program manager and dealing with either launch vehicles or the space launch vehicles or satellites. And so we had people that worked for us that designed satellites and rockets, and so we managed the programs that got them to fruition. So that was at Los Angeles Air Force Base. They don't have a runway. There's no real Air Force flight operations there, but it's all technical space program stuff, like a little campus of space programs. Anyway, that's where I went for the next 3 years or so. Then I was able to get back into. I went to school, Air Command and Staff College, and the assignment after that was in A-37. So this was they called it the OA-37 because we flew as a fast FAC mission, a fast forward air controller, and that was out of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. So I think it was Tex Brown, who's another A-1 pilot, that got us. It was in personnel, and he ended up helping me get that assignment. So we got to Davis-Monthan and flying the A-37 for the next 3 years. So
now, after you did all of that, did you go back into the space program?
I did. Right after A-37s, we had, that was another great aircraft to fly, by the way. We went to Los Angeles Air Force Base again. I was in the space program, and it was a follow-on assignment with the spacecraft and rockets, and just managed programs building satellites of that held large infrared imaging telescopes, if you will. And that's where I was when I retired.
Now that's been what, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years since you retired?
Since I retired?
Yeah.
No, it's 1991.
Oh, was it? I thought it.
I'm an older guy.
I didn't know. I thought you and Gabby just recently retired. Maybe it's where you moved to Arizona. It was just a few years ago. That's what it was. Yeah.
We lived in California in Redondo Beach for many years. Yeah. And then the last 4 years over there, we were at Palm Springs, California. So we moved from there to Tucson.
So one of the last things I would like to talk about is a group of you of Sandy 1 pilots, of Sandy leads, went back to Vietnam recently. There was 4 of you. Can you lead me through that a little bit? How you started the idea of that and who came up with it and said, let's go?
John Goldenbaum arranged it. He organized it and said, guys, I want to go over there and have a beer at the H in the River, which was a geological two rivers coming together over there near Khe Sanh, actually, in Chapon and Laos. And he said, I want to go over there and have a beer on the H in the River, and because we only saw it from the air when we were over there, dropping bombs or marking targets or whatever. And he said, we're going to do this. And John had been active flying in Post Air Force, and he had put this all together. And he said, we got Roger Youngblood, who was the other one, and John Rawson and myself. So Roger had been living in Thailand for many years after his assignments in the A-1 and helping some other things go with the A-1s. he was able to. 665 was another example where he was helping rescue that aircraft.
Yeah.
So they had. He was there, and with the what they call it, MACB, and I forget the name of it. The anyway, it was the embassy associated with the embassy there. So, and then he retired, and he was living there on the economy teaching school, I think initially, and for some time. And so Roger, being in Thailand, and he spoke fluent Thai, he helped us with the arrangements, getting over there and making this trip happen. And John Rawson was another good friend I had worked with him in the A-1 squadron in 71, and he was a good friend of John's because they had both come. John and John Rawson had flown the OV-10 and then came to the A-1 squadron after that. That's a long story on why it happened, but they've been friends for a while. So we had us four get together, and Roger helped plan it. I helped plan a little bit, but mostly it was John Golenbaum. And so the trip was fly from wherever we are to Bangkok, whatever we needed to do there for a day or so, and then we were met by some Thai military guys that were treated us like gods. They were just so great for us. And one of those generals in that group, he had been behind trying to reinvigorate Nakhon Phanom NKP as a base, because it had kind of gone by the wayside after the war. And he treated us really well, and we went up to North NKP, and we toured the place there, and he's got a flight school that he's generating there. And then we drove down in buses, toured buses from NKP down to, I forget the name now, but it's right across the river from Savannah Cat. Savannah Cat is the bridge, go across to Thailand, to Laos, and then from there we drove over to Chapon, and Chapon was over there near the area where I was describing that rescue that we were on, and near Khe Sanh. So we did that, and we had people in country that supported trips like this, mostly tourists, but they knew how to speak the language and get, work things out with the hotel. So we had this communist hotel that we stayed at in Chapon. That was very interesting. I think it was like $8 a day or $15 a day or something for the cost, really cheap. And you could tell they don't keep it up like American hotels, holes in the towels and yeah. And so we were there for 3 days, and while we were there, this company that does trips like this to help tourists come over there and see the sights, they took us down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and we went up and down. The trail is still kind of like it was back then in the 60s, 70s. It's just dirt. There's no concrete. It's dirt and potholes of half the size of a car. And we got down to the H in the river, as John called it, and we saw a bridge, a collapsed bridge that had been bombed in probably 68 or 69. And somebody told us about a mission that they did to take that out. And the bridge just left there, collapsed and not redone to cross this river. And the local people there, they used boats or whatever to get across, or small walking paths. Anyway, so we saw the countryside there, and it was just fantastic seeing it from the ground. We went to this near Khe Sanh, between Chapon, just outside of Chapon, there's this museum that the communists, I think Chinese run it now, but it's a museum from the Vietnamese side, North Vietnamese side, and Chinese and side. So, they're the heroes in there, and they're, shooting down these American helicopters and aircraft, and they have stories about all that. And especially for Lam Son, there was a mission called Lam Song 719, and I think that's what the Vietnamese called it too. And John Ralston, who was one of the 4 of us that went over there on this trip, he was a FAC before he came back to A1s over there in late 1970. And he was very familiar with all these landmarks and places where they had guns and stuff. And so it was great tribute to see how they viewed the war, and how John Ralston could see how he viewed it from a fact perspective, and these spots where the certain locations were to, where we tried to intercept them coming up this valley, we the Americans and the South Vietnamese, but they kind of overran it, and it was a big victory for them.
Their tactic on warfare is just walls of human beings.
Yeah.
Waves.
It seems like it.
And
yeah.
that's an Asian tactic,
right,
at the core, where we try strategic. Yeah. And
in the Korean War, I think it was a lot of that.
Yep.
Just wave of people.
Yep. So overall, the trip was fantastic. Did you find any aha moment when you were there? Was there anything that said, this is all right?
I don't know. They were, I don't know. It's such a combination of things. The highway Highway 9 it's a 2-lane highway, paved highway, very nice. From the west of Laos to the east of Laos, from Savannakhet over through the area called the Boulevans Plateau, and then over to Chapon, and then Khe Sanh. When it gets into Vietnam, I think they still called it Route 9. But that was the route that we went, and looking back after the trip, on some of the missions that were flown around there and stuff, and that was a pretty hectic operation, especially as you cross the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was right by Chapon. And the other aha thing, we on the west side of Chapon, I believe, yeah, just west, right off that highway, there was a helicopter had crashed. It was like a UH-1, I think, and this an American helicopter, and it was still there, and it was rusting out, after 50 years, right? And they had a monument there for the Vietnamese to say, we killed this enemy and they were really bad. But I found out later that the guys that had flown that helicopter and other supporting missions or other aircraft around that were involved in a really hot battle with those guys. And I think one of the Air Force rescue helicopters that worked that mission ended up getting an Air Force Cross. It was one of those, real heavy duty missions. And just seeing that aircraft there and seeing the holes in it and how it looked from the ground was very, you don't see that from the air when you're flying and dropping the bombs and shooting the guns at them. So,
interesting perspective.
Very interesting perspective. Yeah. So, the other thing.
Yeah.
Laotians, they're under communist control, and there was one of the things that one of the portions of the trail we were going to try to get to was on I think it was on the north side of Route 9, and we had a Laotian lady with us that you could speak their language and stuff, and she was able to talk to the local people in their language and say, this is what we're doing, and we're trying to get through here. And we passed through this village, and it was really, really poor. It was a dirt road, and up ahead was a checkpoint, and they had one of these barriers across, and the checkpoint was controlled by the communist Chinese, and she actually went up there and talked to them and asked if we could pass, and they said no. So it was like they're still operating there under this crazy guys, and you had a vehicle. I saw the first one and I couldn't believe it. It's like a lawnmower motor, and it's up at the front here, and it's got a long drive shaft and steering wheel, and it was like something that would have been built in 1950 or 40 or something. It was like, this is how they get around, and they're hauling wood or something on the back of their little trailer attached to it.
And it's forever long.
Yes.
Yes. And you know that guys, yeah, I've seen those.
You've seen those?
Those are the guys that are actually, they're harvesting wood illegally.
Yeah.
But that's what that's how they're surviving.
Dang.
Is they're having to go into the jungle and cut what they can to survive. And I watched I saw a whole show on them.
Oh my God.
Because I remember seeing that thing. I'm like, what is that? It looks like it's like a rototiller on the front with wheels. It's got the same thing. The motor's laid up there, and he's just steering it with those little handlebars, and everything's behind him, and he's got the family hanging out on it. And
weird.
It just, I saw that. So when you said it, I've seen that thing.
Yeah. This is 2024.
Well,
it was 23 when we were there.
There's a guy, and I'm trying to remember his name, and I won't, but he has Mission Laos, and he does motorcycle tours through the backcountry of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and I'd seen those on his channel, and I was like, holy cow, and he was explaining what they do. I think that's where I found it.
That's funny. You're the only other person I know that's seen that, other than our group that went over
and
there.
You just look at that, you're like, that's a strange looking little rig you got there, buddy, but it works for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, Cliff, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
That's you kept my level there. No, that's good. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but
well, sir,
stood out. Those events stood out in my.
I want to thank you. I know we've kind of circled each other for a few years, and I've always wanted to get you in that chair to see what your thought process was, and I'm glad we waited this long so that you had the experience in Vietnam and you could tell us about going back.
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
and the other thing is, John and Roger and John Rawson and I, we just, everybody was tickled that we could be over there. And by the way, two of the guys, John Goldenbaum and there was another guy that was associated with it. Anyway, John Goldenbaum brought his wife with him, so that was really interesting to see how they dealt with it. Oh, there was another guy. He wasn't an A-1 pilot, but he was a friend of John's that came with us on that trip.
Yep.
Him and he and his wife. So it was interesting, and I couldn't believe that they could put up with the jostling on the Ho Chi Minh Trail that we did. Anyway, that was it. That was a great trip.
Well, that's a good place for us to sign off then. I want to thank you again so much, Cliff. Thank you.